A warm welcome to all my dear students. An advance happy Independence Day to all of you. And this is the 74th Independence Day. In today's class, we shall discuss about a chapter in history. Chapter number 1, sources, we shall discuss today. Now let's see what are sources. History needs some sources. Now let's learn about historical sources. Historical sources are the foundation to understand a particular era back in time. They help us to gain knowledge about important events, inventions, cultures, civilizations, and many other aspects of the society. They serve as an evidence in the construction of history. Now let's learn about history in detail. History is a systematic study of the past. It is written on the basis of sources. So, we are calling, if there is no source, no history at all. These sources act as an evidence. The historians are like an advocate. The advocates present their arguments on the basis of followed evidences and sources related to their case. Same way, historians collect the sources, subject them to critical examination, analysis, and then they write the history. Whenever direct sources are not available, sometimes evidences or the sources won't be available. In such cases, historians need to make some assumptions based on the available sources. Hence, often an event is analyzed from different perspectives by different historians. Now, do you understand? Same concept of past events may be given with different perspectives in a different way by different historians, because there were no direct sources about that. So, the historians has to do some assumptions, and depends on that they used to write the history. Now let's see the sources of history. What is source? Human beings had created many facilities to lead their life since ancient times. If the things used by human beings in the past have remained, then they are called as the sources by historians. So what are called sources? If the things used by human beings in the past have remained, then they are called as the sources by historians. For example, agricultural tools, forts, coins, inscriptions, arms, temples, and religious buildings. So these are considered to be the sources for writing the history. Now let's learn about the sources of history. There are main two sources of history. They are literary sources and archaeological sources. And the literary sources are further divided into written literature and oral literature. The written literature can be divided as native literature and foreign literature, whereas oral literature are folk story, folk songs, folk legends, and ballads. Archaeological sources are inscriptions, coins, monuments, and other ruins. The written literature are written accounts from the past, whereas oral literature are the information that is passed through the years by word of mouth, like songs, stories, myths, ballads, etc. The archaeological sources are the objects of the past that have survived till now, like coins, monuments, inscriptions, and other ruins. Now let's learn about literary sources in detail. Written literature and oral literature are the main sources of literary sources. Written literature can bring the contemporary social life of the times of the writer alive to us. A literary work portrays the then existing aspects of life either directly or indirectly. There are two types in written literary forms. They are native literature and foreign literature. Now let's learn about native literature. The literature created by Indians in their native languages are called as native literature. Literary works in Sanskrit, Prakrit, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, Marathi, Kashmiri, Gujarati, Oriya and many other native languages are the sources. These literatures give us an idea of the contemporary social, religious, economic, cultural and political life of the people back in time. Now let's see some examples of native literature. Kautilya's Arthashastra. The Arthashastra was written by Kautilya. And King Hola's Gatha Saptashati. King Hola has written Gatha Saptashati. And next, Vishakadatta. Vishakadatta has written Mudra Rakshas. Vishakadatta has written Mudra Rakshas. And the fourth one here in the picture, you can see Kalhana's Rajatarangini. Kalhana's Rajatarangini. Next, Banabhatta has written Harshacharita. Banabhatta has written Harshacharita. Next, Chand Bardai's Prithviraj Raso. Chand Bardai has written Prithviraj Raso. And the next one in Kannada, Pampa has written Vikramarjuna Vijaya. Pampa has written Vikramarjuna Vijaya. And the last one is Sangam literature in Tamil. The last one is Sangam literature in Tamil. These are the sources of native literature. Now let's move on to foreign literature. Many foreigners who visited India as travelers, ambassadors, businessmen, officials and missionaries have recorded their observations and experiences in their works. These works are considered as foreign literature. Now, do you understand what is foreign literature? The foreigners who visited India, they have recorded their observations and experiences in their works. And these works were called as foreign literature. Now, let's see some examples of foreign literature. Megasthenes has written Indica. Indica was written by Megasthenes. And next, Fahian. Fahian has written Go Ko Ki. Go Ko Ki was written by Fahian. And third, Huan Swang. Huan Swang has written Si Yu Ki. Huan Swang has written Si Yu Ki. And fourth, Ptolemy. Ptolemy has written Geography. Ptolemy has written Geography. And fifth, Tarak-e-Ferishta was written by Ferishta. Who has written Ferishta? Ferishta has written Tarak-e-Ferishta. And the last one, sixth one is here, Tusk-e-Babri, which was written by Babur. Babur's Tusk-e-Babri. Tusk-e-Babri was written by Babur. And these are the important sources of foreign literature. Apart from, there are many other writings that serve as the sources which was written by foreigners. These works also get the depiction of the contemporary social, political, economic, cultural and administration aspects of those society. Now let's see the drawbacks of these literary sources. These literary sources are giving an idea about the society, political, economic, cultural and administrative aspects of those period it has some drawbacks. Let's see now. In native literature, usually the exaggeration, hyperbole, and loyalty to one's master are apparent. Whereas in foreign literature, lack of local knowledge led to misguided information. Thus, historians have to keep in their mind all these challenges while writing the history. Children, in today's class, we learned what is history and what are sources, what are the main types of sources, and in the types of sources we have learned literary sources, that is native literature and foreign literature. Understood? And in the next class, we shall learn about oral literature and archaeological sources. Now let's move on to questionnaire. The first question is, what is history? Do you tell me what is history? History is a systematic study of the past. What is history? History is a systematic study of the past. Second question is, what are sources in history? If the things used by human beings in the past have remained, then they are called as sources by historians. If the things used by human beings in the past have remained, then they are called as the sources by historians. The third question, name the main sources of history. The main sources of history are literary sources and archaeological sources. The main sources of history are literary sources and archaeological sources. Next one. Name the two types of literary sources. Fourth question is, name the two types of literary sources. The two types of literary sources are written literature and oral literature. Written literature and the oral literature are the two types of literary sources. And the last question, mention the work of Kautilya. Kautilya has written Arthashastra. Mention the work of Kautilya. Kautilya has written Arthashastra. Dear students, watch this video class properly and repeatedly watch this video. Repeat the pronunciation until you are thorough with that. Take running notes and complete your assignment on time and submit it. Classwork also simultaneously you have to write. And whenever I am mentioning you, by the time you can submit your classwork. We shall meet in the next class, children. Until then, bye-bye. Happy Independence Day to you all once again. Thank you, children.